Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. It's from Canto 2, Chapter 10, and text 37, 38, 39, and 40. Actually, I'm sitting in for His Grace Dronacharya Das, who is in a meeting right now. And so he might take my spot on Friday. We'll see about that. But I'm covering for him because he's in a meeting now. He actually was supposed to preach this morning. Okay, so without further ado, we'll start the class. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari, Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jamunatira Vanachari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivājakacārya Astottara Satasishimāris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivājakacārya Astottara Sati Sisimadis Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin ki Jai. Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki Jai. ISKCON founder Charya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sita Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Shadi Gaur Bhaktavinda ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakopina Sham Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham ki Jai. Navadvip Dham ki Jai. Ganga Mai ki Jai, Jamuna Mai ki Jai, Tulsi Devi ki Jai, Bhakti Devi ki Jai, Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki Jai, Samaveda Bhaktavinda ki Jai. Nitai Go Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the lotus feet of Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namini Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Siddhartmani Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namini Narayana Namaskritya Narunchevam Naruttamam Devim Saraswati Vyāsa Tato Jayam Vajirayat Nashya Praisva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sivaya Bhagavati Uttamasloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Sri Prabhupada. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, the Cosmic Manifestation, Chapter 10, Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions, text 37 to 40. Prajā-patīn manūn devān, ṛṣīn pitṛ-gaṇān pṛthak, siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvān, vidyādhrāsura-guhyakān, kinnarāpsaraso nāgān, sarpān kimpuruṣān narān, mātṭ rakṣaḥ-piśācāṁś, preta-bhūta-vināyakān, kūṣmāṇḍonmāda-vetālān, yātudhānān grahān api, khagān, mṛgān, paśūn, vṛkṣān, sarpān, dvi-vidhāś catur-vidhā, jala-sthala-nabhaukasaḥ, kushala mishra karmanam gatayastvimam. Prajā-patīn Manu devān, ṛṣīn pitṛ-gaṇān pṛthak, siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvān, vidyādhrāsura-guhyakān, kinnarāpsaraso nāgān, sarpān kimpuruṣān narān, mātṭ rakṣaḥ-piśācāṁś, preta-bhūta-vināyakān, kūṣmāṇḍonmāda-vetālān, yātudhānān grahān api, khagān, mṛgān, paśūn, vṛkṣān, sarpān, dvi-vidhāś catur-vidhā, jala-sthala-nabhaukasaḥ, kushala mishra kamanam gatayastvimam. Prajā-patīn manūn devān, ṛṣīn pitṛ-gaṇān pṛthak, siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvān, vidyādhrāsura-guhyakān, kinnarāpsaraso nāgān, sarpān kimpuruṣān narān, mātṭ rakṣaḥ-piśācāṁś, preta-bhūta-vināyakān, kūṣmāṇḍonmāda-vetālān, yātudhānān grahān api, khagān, mṛgān, paśūn vṛkṣān, sarīṣripān, dvi-vidhāś catur-vidhāś, jala-sthala-nabhaukasaḥ, kuṣala-kuṣala-mishra, karmanam gatayastvima. Hare Krishna. Please chant.
prajā-patīn manūn devān, ṛṣīn pitṛ-gaṇān pṛthak, siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvān, vidyādhrāsura-guhyakān, kinnarāpsaraso nāgān, sarpān kimpuruṣān narān, mātṭ rakṣaḥ-piśācāṁś, preta-bhūta-vināyakān, kūṣmāṇḍonmāda-vetālān, yātudhānān grahān khagān, mṛgān, paśūn, vṛkṣān, saripān, dvi-vidhāś catur-vidhāye अन्ये, jala-sthala-nabhaukasaḥ, कौशला-कुशला-मिश्रः कर्मणां गतयस्त्वइमः. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anyone else? Okay. We'll go to word for word. Prajā-patīn, Brahma and his sons like Daksha and others. Manūn, the periodical heads like Vaivasvata Manu. Devān, like Indra, Candra and Varuṇa. ṛṣīn, like Bhrigu and Vasiṣṭha. pitṛ-gaṇān, the inhabitants of the Pitṛ planets. Pṛthak, separately. Siddha, the inhabitants of the Siddha planet. Cāraṇa, the inhabitants of the Cārana planet. Gandharvān, the inhabitants of the Gandharva planet. So, vidyādhrā, the inhabitants of the Vidyādhara planet. Asura, the atheists. Guhyakān, the inhabitants of the Yaksha planet. Kinnarān, the inhabitants of the Kinnara planet. Apsarasa, the beautiful angels of the Apsara planet. Nāgān, the serpentine inhabitants of Nagalok. Sarpān, the inhabitants of Sarpalok, snakes. Kimpuruṣān, the monkey-shaped inhabitants of the Kimpurusha planet. Narān, the inhabitants of earth. Excuse me. Mātṛ, the inhabitants of Pitṛloka. rakṣaḥ, the inhabitants of the demoniac planet. Piśācān, the inhabitants of Pitṛloka. Cha, also. Preta, the inhabitants of Pitṛloka. Bhūta, the evil spirits. Vināyakān, the goblins. kūṣmāṇḍa, will of the wisp. Unmāda, lunatics. Vetālān, the jinn. Yātudhānān, a particular type of evil spirit. Grahān, the good and evil stars. Api, also. khagān, the birds. mṛgān, the forest animals. paśūn, the household animals. vṛkṣān, the ghosts. girin, the mountains. nripa, O king. sarīṣripān, reptiles. dvi-vidhāś, the moving and the standing living entities. catur-vidhā, the living entities born from embryos, eggs, perspiration, and seeds. Ye others, and ye all, jala water, sthala land, nabhaukasaḥ birds, kushala in happiness, akushala in distress, mishra in mixed happiness and distress. Karmanam according to one's own past deeds. Gataya as a result of. Tu but. Ima all of them. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. O King, know from me that all living entities are created by the Supreme Lord according to their past deeds. This includes Brahma and his sons like Daksha, the periodical heads like Vaivasvata Manu, the demigods like Indra, Candra, and Varuṇa, the great sages like Bhrigu, Vyāsa, and Vasiṣṭha, the inhabitants of the Pitṛloka and Siddhaloka, the Charanas, the Gandharvas, vidyādhrās, asuras, yakshas, kinnaras, and angels, the serpentines, the monkey-shaped kimpuruṣas, the human beings, the inhabitants of Pitṛloka, the demons, the piśācas, ghosts, spirits, lunatics, and evil spirits, the good and evil stars, the goblins, the animals in the forest, the birds, the household animals, the reptiles, the mountains, the moving and standing living entities, the living entities born from embryos, from eggs, from perspiration, and from seeds, and all others, whether they be in the water, land, or sky, in happiness, in distress, or in mixed happiness and distress. All of them, according to their past deeds, are created by the Supreme Lord. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The varieties of living entities are mentioned in this list, and with no exception, from the topmost planet down to the lowest planet of the universe, all of them in different species of life are created by the Almighty Father Vishnu. Therefore, no one is independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, text 4, the Lord therefore claims all living entities as his offspring in the following verse. Sāvayo nishikonteya vurtaya sambhavantiya tāśam brahma mahādyoni aham bija pradāpita. The material nature is compared to the mother. Although every living being is seen to come out of the mother's body, it is still a fact that the mother is not the ultimate cause of such a birth. The father is the ultimate cause of birth. Without the father's seed, no mother can give birth to a child. Therefore, the living beings in different varieties of forms and positions within the innumerable universes are all born of the seeds of the Almighty Father, the personality of Godhead. And only to the man with a poor fund of knowledge do they appear to be born of the material nature. Being under the material energy of the Supreme Lord, all living entities, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, are manifested in different bodies according to their past deeds. The material nature is one of the energies of the Lord. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 4. The material nature is inferior in comparison to the living entities, the superior nature. The superior nature and inferior nature of the Lord combine to manifest all universal affairs. Some of the living entities are relatively happy in better conditions of life, whereas others are in distressed conditions of life. But factually, none of them are actually happy in material conditional life. No one can be happy in prison life, although one may be a first-class prisoner and another a third-class prisoner. The intelligent person should try to be promoted from the third-class prison life to first-class. The intelligent person should not try to be promoted from a third-class prison life to the first-class prison life, but should try to be released from the prison altogether. One may be promoted to first-class prisoner, but the same first-class prisoner is again degraded to a third-class prisoner in the next term. One should try to be free from prison life and go back home, back to Godhead. That is the real goal for all types of living entities. Oma Gena Timirandasya, Jnana Gena Shalakaya, Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapaраtikam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namini. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharini Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshitarini. Namo Mahavaranyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gurachise Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shandi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. So English translation of this text, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, text 37 through 40. O King, know from me that all living entities are created by the Supreme Lord according to their past deeds. This includes Brahma and his sons like Daksha, the periodical heads like Vaivasvata Manu, the demigods like Indra, Candra, and Varuṇa, the great sages like Bhrigu, Vyāsa, and Vasiṣṭha, the inhabitants of the Pitṛloka and Siddhaloka, the Charanas, Gandharvas, vidyādhrās, asuras, yakshas, kinnaras, and angels, serpentines, the monkey-shaped kimpuruṣas, the human beings, the inhabitants of Pitṛloka, the demons, pisachas, ghosts, spirits, lunatics, and evil spirits, the good and evil stars, the goblins, the animals in the forest, the birds, the household animals, the reptiles, the mountains, the moving and standing living entities, the living entities born from embryos, from eggs, from perspiration, and from seeds, and all others, whether they be in water, land, or sky, in happiness, in distress, or in mixed happiness and distress. All of them, according to their past deeds, are created by the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna. Bhagavatam is very interesting because, and it's very interesting for one reason. This is proof, this particular text, or set of texts, 37, 38, 39, and 40, they are proof of what the title for this chapter entails. The title is Bhagavatam is the answer to all questions. Where would you find that kind of detail in describing the different types of bodies that are in the material world? But they have been described here, those in the heavenly planets, those in the medium planets, those in the lower planets. They've all been described here. In general, the higher planets, those are called the heavenly planets. And that's where the great sages are and the demigods are, like Indra, Candra, and Varuṇa. Those are demigods. Sages like Bhrigu, Vyāsa, Vasiṣṭha. They also live in the heavenly planets. There are a few exceptions of high-level devotees of the Lord who are, because of a particular pastime, maybe living in the lower planets, like Bali Maharaj, but he's not even mentioned here. Anyway, the inhabitants of Pitṛloka, Siddhaloka, Charanas, Gandharvas. Gandharvas are musicians. They are in the heavenly planets. Vidyādhrās, asuras, yakshas, those are in the lower planet systems, lower planetary systems. Asuras, demons, basically. kinnaras and angels. So this was actually mixed in. Sometimes they talk about those in the heavenly planets, sometimes those in the medium planets. The human beings are in the medium planets. The ghosts also roam around in the medium planets. We were talking about that yesterday. We didn't talk about where they were, but it's assumed since they are with us and we are in the medium planets, so then the ghosts are in the medium planets. Good and evil stars. Very interesting. The stars categorized into good and evil. Again, Bhagavatam is the one that gives so much information that obviously scientists don't know anything about a star being good or evil. They look at stars as a thing, but the nature of it is never actually discussed in science, but Bhagavatam is discussing it, even mentioning it. Living entities born from embryos, born from eggs, born from perspiration. Again, science does not know that there are entities that are born from perspiration, and then from seeds. Perspiration usually are germs, and all others, whether they be in water, land, or sky, and what kind of mood they're in, whether they are for the most part happy or for the most part in distress, or they are in mixed, relatively significant on both sides, distress and happiness. All of them, a very appropriate sentence here to end it, because Sukadeva Goswami was describing that some people are in happiness relatively, some people are in distress, and then some people are in mixed happiness and distress. Actually, most entities are in mixed happiness and distress. Those in the heavenly planets have more of material happiness than distress, but distress does in fact happen to them also, because every now and then there is war that goes on between the demons and the demigods. Not all the time, or not as frequently as what happens here on the earth, but it does happen even in the heavenly planets also. Now, based on everyone's past deeds, they get created in particular bodies. So there are a total of 8,400,000 types of bodies. 8,400,000 types of bodies. And from this 8,400,000, only 400,000 are categorized as humans. But humans in this case, very broad. Those in the heavenly planets are categorized in that 400,000 also. So even ghosts are categorized in the 400,000 also. So those that are not in the 400,000, the 8 million, they are the aquatics, those that live in the ocean or in the rivers. We know fish, but then of course there are different types of aquatics that live there. There are some that we don't know anything about. See, Prabhupada sometimes mentions the big ones that this planet people here don't know about. He has mentioned in some lectures Timinga, the Timinga fish. It's called a fish. True enough, when we talk about our whales, we talk about very big fish then. By the way, the total of entities in the water in all of the material world, those in the water, that type of body is 900,000 of them. 900,000. And so, yeah, we're talking about whales. So the big fish that swallow a lot of little fish. But the Timinga, which doesn't really come to this area, makes the whale look very small. They're very big. And so the Timinga fish can actually swallow a bunch of whales, just like whales swallow a bunch of little fish easily. They can also. Srila Prabhupada says they don't usually come to this area. There are trees that are very, very big, that even their fruits, when they fall from the trees, they can generate a huge stream, from one fruit. Those are all heavenly planet types of fruits. And the demigods themselves, a few of them are mentioned here, they will make us look like little midgets, the way we see ants, relatively, this, and the size of ants compared to us. The demigod size compared to us is like we are the ant and they are the persons. That's how big they are. They can literally flatten us, just like we can flatten an ant. So the bodies are very different. Anyway, so there is 900,000 of them, the 900,000 types of bodies, physical bodies in the waters. Then for the trees, plants and trees, 2 million types. And the insects and reptiles, they put together in this particular categorization. Insect and reptiles, they are 1,100,000. Then birds, 1 million types of birds. There are some birds that are very huge, and the birds that we know here, they go from one plant or one tree to another. They can even go quite a long distance, a few miles, go from one tree to another. But there are, Srila Prabhupada describes, again, in the heavenly planets, there are big, very big birds, way bigger than eagles. And they can fly from one planet to another planet. So in the heavenly planets, things are much, much, much more magnified compared to what we're used to here. So yeah, birds, animals, 3 million. Animals, 3 million. So 900,000 plus 2 million, that's 2,900,000, and then plus 1.1 million for the insects, that will be 4 million, and then 1 million added it for the birds, that would be 5 million, and then 3 million for the animals, after 5 million would be 8 million. So that's all of them. And then humans of 400,000. Now the humans are the ones with the intelligence better than the others, the non-human species. So that's why the demigods and all that, they're categorized in that species. When we talk about the numbers, it's like that. Because they have the level of intelligence, they can understand Krishna consciousness. Actually, I should say we, because we are in that category. But we are very small. The fraction of human, the 400,000, out of all the 8,400,000, we're about a little less than 5%. Of all the kinds of species that are available, if you take 20 of them, one is human. The 19 of them are non-human. They cannot go back to Godhead. So we're saying that to make the point that we're very fortunate at this time for us as souls to be in human bodies. And Srila Prabhupada makes it plain to us, take advantage of the situation that we're in. We should take advantage of that situation. We are in a situation where we can go back home. The material world is full of challenges. Just because we're in a situation, for some of us, that there is some decent amount of money that can come, we can pay our bills, or we're working in our karma situation is such that, we can get, we can go on day by day. That does not make this a comfortable place to be, because there are miseries from our own selves. We go through fear, and obviously that's not fun at all. Fear is here, depression is here. That's just from our own selves. Then there's disturbances by other living entities. Sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's not deliberate. Deliberate in terms of those who are criminals, who want to deliberately harm us. Those are there, and it depends on their minds. Sometimes there are others that we don't even see how they act, but they act. They're called germs. They're not intending on harming us. They're just living their lives. But the way they live their lives make us sick. They give disease to us, sometimes even fatal diseases. Remember COVID-19? Germs, but they kill people. So that's the way it is here. And then, of course, the demigods, they control the weather. And sometimes the weather really gives us quite a few challenges. Every year we go through some challenges because of the weather. So there is no total peace on this level that we are at, this medium level, Pitṛloka as it's called, the earth. But the one thing that's good is we have the opportunity to go back to Godhead, where all of these anxieties and all of these problems are non-existent. It's all bliss and it's all happiness. Actually, everybody, they want to really, really, really be honest with themselves, would like to live in a situation where everything is provided. They don't have to work. They are sufficiently wealthy. And they live in a place where nobody gives them problems. Everybody is loving towards them. This is the ideal place that we would love to be. Except, of course, we don't find it here on this earth. But that is the ideal place. Given that situation, if given a choice, we would much rather be in a place where we don't have to struggle to make ends meet. We don't even have to work at all. If we could ever have everything provided, and we don't have to die, we don't have to get old, and we have all our senses around us, that would be very ideal. Well, the good news is there is such a place. We're just not living there yet, but there is such a place. And in fact, in all of existence, that place, the spiritual world, is the biggest. The spiritual world is 3 times bigger than the material world. In the material world, there will be different levels of material happiness and some suffering, depending on what level of a universe and what kind of body the person is taking birth in. But in the end, everybody goes through some kind of suffering. It doesn't matter that we're happy most of the time. Like being a heavenly planet, the person, that particular living entity will be happy most of the time. But one thing about the soul is when distress comes, we hate it very much. Nobody likes distress. Everybody would rather be happy. So since this is our nature to be happy, then we should go where that is available all of the time. Right now, in the material world, we're not going to get that. So when someone tells us, like Srila Prabhupada tells us, this is the way to go about your life so that you can leave later on, leave this body. First of all, to tell you the body is not even you. We are the soul inside this body. But at some point, when death comes, we will leave this body. And that death, if you live a life based on what Srila Prabhupada is telling us to do, it will only be a transition to the place where all of these things that we described that make us happy are available in a quantity we cannot even imagine. Brihad-bhagavatamrita describes wealth in the spiritual world. It's incredible. It is really incredible. There's so much wealth. Those who are in the spiritual world, they don't even worry about wealth so much. Yeah, everything is accessible. Nobody rushes to get anything. If you desire something, it can come to you. If you desire to be in a particular place, you can arrive there. Or if you desire to associate with others just to have a good time with them, then sure, you can do that also. Nothing ever gets repaired. Everything is in mint condition and stays that way. Imagine a place like that. And Srila Prabhupada is saying, this is where we were. This is Krishna's abode. Here is Krishna's prison. That is the difference. That's why there is suffering here. And the suffering is relative to how much problems that we've caused in the past, our previous lives, and what we're doing in this lifetime. Now, what changes everything? Well, what changes everything here in the material world is the person making the decision on their own to connect with Krishna and Krishna's devotees. When that decision is made, it is the best decision that a person can ever make, because then the whole idea of karma is stopped. Sins and then the sinful reactions from that. Krishna has already said in Bhagavad Gita, if you surrender to me, I will actually relieve you of sinful reactions. That means your karma. Surrender. And he says, don't fear. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, owner and controller of everything, when he says don't fear, nobody can assure you for fearlessness than Krishna can. And he says, don't be afraid. Just turn to me and serve me. When Krishna says that, and we go about Krishna's business by obeying him and serving him, even as we're here now in this place that we've already described, there's some problems, sometimes the stress is here, we will feel happy not from the things around us, but internally. Internally, that means we will feel happiness from the heart. Happiness from the heart, because the soul is in the heart area. So that happiness is actually not from the heart organ, it's actually from the soul. But the soul is gives us the consciousness. The symptom of the soul is consciousness. The fact that the soul is in the body means we are alive, we are conscious. And the soul's happiness from the soul will give us, despite the situation that we're in, that sometimes can be challenging, we will still have a decent measure of happiness. So when we connect to Krishna consciousness, then happiness begins to come, even while we are in this prison house or the house of correction. So, yes, different types of species have been described, and that makes, of course, it adds to our knowledge. So many species are there. Krishna created all of them through the Lord Vishnu. The ultimate is Krishna. The expansion of Krishna is Lord Vishnu. And there are three Vishnus that are the Purusha avatars. The Mahavishnu, through whom the universes come to being, the universes of a whole material nature come into being. He also establishes time. When that happens, the universes come out. Then he expands into Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, there's one for each planet. And he's the one that trains Lord Brahma. In fact, Lord Brahma is born from him. And he also trains Lord Brahma for the varieties that can be created. Planets and what's in each planet. Actually, he doesn't just create planets, he creates planetary systems. In each planetary system is a whole bunch of planets in one planetary system, and their positions also in the universe. So all of that's done by Lord Brahma after after the demigods are created. They help them. They help him in creating different things inside of each universe. The demigods also help out. So Lord Brahma creates by being trained by Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And he can, in fact, from his own body, different parts of his body, literally, other entities can be born from him. So Lord Brahma is in a unique position. But he is the first living being of the material world for each, and there's one Lord Brahma for each planet. Now, the Lord Brahma we have there's a Lord Brahma for each universe. I think I heard myself say planet, but it's actually, no, it's supposed to be Lord Brahma for each universe, one Lord Brahma per universe. The Lord Brahma that we have now is very much connected to Krishna, or Lord Vishnu. And so much so that he has done so much in serving, in involving himself in devotional service, and also advising other entities to be connected to devotional service. Literally, the Vedas were spoken to him by Krishna. And so we are fortunate that on this planet, the leader of the planet, in the manner of speaking, Lord Brahma, is in fact very, very God conscious. And he is going back home. He's going to live a total of 311 trillion and 40 billion years. But after that, he's going back to the spiritual world. And he also encourages that we go back to the spiritual world. So the sampradaya, the unit that we are part of, and there are 4 major units, the sampradaya that we're involved in is actually the one that Brahma is heading. Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So we're very fortunate to have this. Not all Brahmas are going to be in a situation of going back, like the way going back to the spiritual world, like this Brahma is going to. It doesn't happen to all of them. It doesn't. But this one, we're fortunate to have where his head is at, or his heads, he has 4 heads, are at, in terms of their connection to Krishna. We're very, very, very fortunate to have that particular Brahma, that particular personality. Brahma is actually a post. So the one that occupies it now is in fact one that is very, very Krishna conscious. And Krishna involves him. Bhagavatam talks about him. He in fact preaches sometimes in some of the Shastra that we are going by is from Lord Brahma. There's a whole Brahma Samhita where the Brahma Samhita describes the spiritual world, what is there. Sometimes, according to Garga Samhita, that is the compilation, Samhita means compilation, by Garga Muni, he's described a particular situation in the spiritual world, and the spiritual world is always fun going on. Always fun going on. And various types of episodes, we call them pastimes, are set up by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is absolutely wonderful. Some of it is breathtaking. Some of it is just, you get into so much ecstasy. Lord Brahma does in fact get invited. This Lord Brahma, this one with the 4 heads, gets invited to the spiritual world, into Golok Vrindavan. In one situation, and this was just for fun, to break it down simple, because Krishna's activities are obviously transcendental. He said that Janma Karma Chame Didyam Evam Yuviti Tatpata. And if we understand that, then that all of his activities, birth and activities, are at the transcendental level. So even if they look like what we're used to doing here, they're not ultimately material at all. They are spiritual. But that helps us sometimes to see, because this is a personal God, and therefore some of the activities may seem to be like what we do at the material level. But he's always in the transcendental level. Anyway, since I talked about something about Garga Samhita, so there was one pastime of the Lord, and again, we won't go into great detail as to why, because why, I can't answer that. He said that's things in his own will. So in this particular episode, our pastime, Lord Brahma from this particular universe where we're at was invited to Golok Vrindavan. And he was invited to Golok Vrindavan to actually officiate a pastime between Radha and Krishna. This Lord Brahma was invited. So Lord Brahma went to, and this is not the only time. There are other times too. The Garga Samhita describes that Lord Brahma was actually in Golok Vrindavan. But this particular one we're going to describe, there was a ceremony, Radha and Krishna, and it's a love ceremony. You can call it wedding if you like, because that's what we used to, the terminology that we use here. But it was a love ceremony, and they wanted to do a puja, so they invited Lord Brahma to come do the puja for the wedding. I'm using the wedding advisedly because I can't really find another word that satisfies the way we look at things. So this is just for fun. Krishna does all the times, all the episodes that go on here, the pastimes are just for fun. But it's wonderful too, the way they take shape. So Lord Brahma was there, and our Brahma, and he and Krishna, Radha and Krishna were seated on the lotus throne. And so he performed the puja. Lord Brahma performed the puja. And there were some mantras that he chanted, but he also described how the activities that were going on, he made literally a prayer out of it. And it's a very, very nice prayer. Talking about Krishna, I'll just describe it, talking about the Lord and the way him and Radha relate. When Krishna becomes as Lord Ram, then Radha comes as Sita. So that's one example because we know about Ramayana. But he described, Lord Brahma described different things too. When Krishna, in the impersonal form, when he's Brahman, then Radharani is Prakriti. Now, that may be difficult for us to kind of put together, put in our own minds how that is. But again, if anybody would know, Lord Brahma would know. So he described in his prayer like that. When your Brahman is Prakriti, and when your time, when you are time, you Krishna are time, then the wise know that she, Radharani, is Pradhan. When you are the Mahatattva, from which countless universes have sprouted, Radha becomes the potency Maya filled with the three modes. So that prayer is very revealed. So many things that is not even discussed in Bhagavatam, but Brahma was talking about it. When you're the four things in the heart, she becomes, when you say you, it means Krishna. And she was saying all of that before she did the puja. When the four things in the heart, she becomes the power of understanding something from hint. And when you're the universal form, then Radha becomes the earth. So then, in the end, Lord Brahma says, I take shelter of you, Supreme Personality of Godhead, greater than the greatest, Master of Golokadam, who now appear as a black splendor. So he formulated that poem or that meditation, looking at how wonderfully Radha and Krishna were dressed and how, for that particular pastime that he officiated, that they invited him to come officiate. So Lord Brahma already gets chances to go to the spiritual world. Therefore, the sampradaya that we're in, Bhava Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, we are actually fortunate to be in that, because that gives us a chance to go to not only just the spiritual world, but that particular planet in the spiritual world that has so much variety compared to the other planets that are in the spiritual world. The planets in the spiritual world are huge. They're very, very big. There's I did a little bit math calculation because of some of the dimensions that is described in the Bhagavatam about the spiritual planets. And for my answers, there's a range, about 1 trillion to 2 trillion. What do those numbers mean? A spiritual planet is about, or at least 1 trillion times bigger than our universe. Not our planet, our universe. Universe with all of the planets in there, with all the planetary systems. One spiritual planet is that much time. 1 trillion means 1 million taken a million times. So the planets are huge, 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 the spiritual planets. And so there are so many living entities. And with that kind of size, when Srila Prabhupada describes to us that, as you saw in this description of the different types of bodies that's here in this particular 37, 38, 39, and 40 texts, the actual percentage is very, 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 very small. Those of us here, compared to those that are in the spiritual world. Srila Prabhupada explained that the overwhelming majority of living entities never left the spiritual world. They are still there, and we are supposed to get our act together because we are fortunate enough to have said yes to Krishna, devotees. We've said yes to Krishna, and therefore now we have a chance to go back. If we understand what our position is, one, Krishna is a seed-giving father for everything in the material energy. We say Krishna, well, it's Lord Vishnu, but Vishnu is an expansion of the Lord. So he is responsible for everything. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego, all of that. They are the Lord's separated energies. As it said in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 4, Bhumi apo nalu vayu, kammanu buddhi evacha, ahankara iti yame, bina prakriti astada. That was the one that I just talked about with English translation. Earth, water, fire, ether, and air. Those are the 5 main ones, gross elements. And then, of course, mind, intelligence, and false ego, the subtle elements. They're actually 24 together. The working senses and the knowledge acquiring senses, we add all of them. But the Lord is the major personality. Nobody should be tempted by my bodies to think any differently from the way Srila Prabhupada has given us what he's given us. The Paramatma is guiding us while we are in the material world. Sometimes people wonder what happens when we go to the spiritual world. The Paramatma manifestation does not guide us in the spiritual world. When we become fully conscious and living as souls in the spiritual world, then there's no guidance needed by the Paramatma. But in the material world, the Paramatma manifestation is there, and he's the one that guides us. So take the process of Krishna consciousness seriously. So we all can go home and stop being in anxiety here. So thank you for coming on. And I went a little bit long because it's almost 9 o'clock. Wasn't looking at the time. But if there are any questions, this is the time to unmute yourself and ask questions. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, obeisances.
Jai. Hare Krishna Mataji. Jai.
Yes, Prabhu. So I really appreciate how you nicely touched on the Visarga section, the secondary creation, energies of the Lord, and how ultimately, within this creation under modes of nature, living entities are in this temporary world, experiencing real-time emotions, sufferings. Yesterday only, there was a workshop in DC Temple here on grief and gratitude. So I'm actually relating to that all of us want to be happy. We don't want to be stressed out. We don't want to be experiencing grief.
Unfortunately, but it hits us anyway.
And then ultimately, we did talk about how we can transform these stressful emotions to love. We have to simply learn how to love Krishna, and that is our ticket back to Godhead.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And the last point that you make about loving the Supreme Personality of God, before I get to you in a second. Loving devotee, loving Krishna so we can get back to Godhead. Radhanath Swami has preached on it, and there is a sequence that we need to understand. You can never ignore devotees and say, I'm going to love Krishna. Doesn't work that way. Love has to start from loving devotees, learning to relate well to devotees. Then that would satisfy the spiritual master. In that way, we develop feelings also for the spiritual master. Many of us look at the spiritual masters in awe and reverence, practically. That's how we serve them, because we know their position as representatives of Krishna. But it is very, very important not to downplay the importance of loving devotees. All devotees at other levels. Doesn't matter, senior to you, same level, lower than, junior to you, not lower, but junior to you in terms of when they came on or when they got initiated. Loving devotees is very, very important. Then you can love Krishna. That's the sequence. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So, dear Krishna Prabhu, please accept our humble
Hare
obeisances.
Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the beautiful class, Prabhu, and a lot of points. And Prabhu, I was thinking when you were describing the spiritual world and material world and how small this material world, not even the planet we are in,
like
and
a dot.
And
the
and
universe is like a dot.
yeah, our position is probably not even a dot. I mean, dot is also too big if you think about it.
You're right about that.
So, how to manage? What are some of the practical advice you would like to give so that we are told or we are instructed to lower our, keep working on lowering our false ego, ahankar, and but at the same time we need some kind of sense of existence to maintain our body and mind in this world, and even for our service. So, what are some of the practical advice where we can effectively work on that, where our ahankar can be reduced, at the same time we don't feel too depressed at the same time? I mean, I don't know how to explain my question, but uh, how to lower our ahankar at the same time maintain our existence in the service of Krishna.
Let me ask a question about this, because then it kind of got me a little bit. Well, let me just ask it: how to get the ahankar reduced, but at the same time not feel depressed? Was that because I couldn't?
Depressed probably is not the right word, but at the same time we
try to
don't
describe
feel
with
so
the word.
low of ourselves that we can't function in this world.
Oh, okay. Well, let's start from the first point about the ahankar, false ego. The false ego is the one that's most difficult to overcome. Let's put that on the side. False ego is most difficult. We'll come back to it also. Now, what beats false ego is humility. Humility. The more humble the devotee is, the more unlikely that the false ego is going to be a problem for them in terms of keeping it under control. But actually, the real ego is we are servants of Krishna. And that's why Srila Prabhupada actually started us off by saying we are servants of Krishna, but of course, everybody's part and parcel of Krishna also. So Srila Prabhupada added it up and gave us instruction that we should look at each other as Prabhu, that we master, and not say it just to say it, but actually be ready to serve devotees. Now, it's a very important question you brought up, because when we are in, some of us go to work, I'm retired, but those times when we're working, we are around non-devotees. So how should we behave when we know that we can serve devotees, but non-devotees think differently from the way we are being trained? Very important point here. Because there are some, and I'm saying that, then I will deal with the answer. I'm saying that because there are some devotees who actually literally have lost jobs. And I know my god sister was one of them, lost a job because they think that to express humility, sometimes the sadhus are very, very, very highly elevated, pure devotees. seem to put themselves down when they talk about their level of devotion and so on. Bhaktivinoda Thakur has done that. Narottam Das Thakur has done that. So then the devotees made the mistake of telling the supervisor at work and putting themselves down. And what happens? She got fired. So expressing humility literally at the wrong place. Humility can be expressed, but we have to understand where we are and what the person's consciousness is. Among non-devotees, they will never understand when we look at ourselves as small or use adjectives to describe ourselves that sound demeaning. They're going to say we're no good for them. So you do not bring that type of description of ourselves ever in non-devotees. You can be nice to them. More the goodness, yes. So be, activities, more the goodness. Don't know it, you can just go to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, text 42, pick up some of that, or even chapter 16, text 1, 2, and 3. So many points are there, how to behave. But in that arena, non-devotees, especially those who are supervisors, we have to be careful. We have to work steadily, but this type of show of humility, they wouldn't be able to codify it properly. So we have to be careful not to show that to them. You can be nice generally. You can be nice generally. But when it comes to humility, especially in that arena, don't get yourself involved in it. Just say, okay, I'm trying to just get my faults to go in check. Therefore, I'll be. But if you're going to be humble, but be humble in front of devotees, because they understand. Don't go telling somebody I'm a worm in stew. You're going to be gone from the job quickly. I don't want a person who's like that. That's exactly what a non-devotee would tell you. So be careful, even though the activities for humility, they're listed. And the pure devotees, they describe themselves in different ways compared to Krishna. And the reason they describe themselves is Krishna has so much. There's so much to Krishna compared to them that, yeah, they do feel small in front of Krishna. Everybody should feel small in front of Krishna because that's the reality. And that's why sometimes they use words that, Bhaktivinoda Thakur uses words like that. It also is to help us to grow in Krishna consciousness more when they use words like Bhaktivinoda, just stuck in this particular world, and but actually it's we that are stuck in this particular world. He's a pure devotee, but he's actually speaking in our stead. He's speaking for us. So yes, show all kinds of respect around devotees, but be careful in the other arenas where they actually expect you to be a little bolder. Be respectful, but a little bolder. Please don't use words that are demeaning. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Glory to your Prabhupada. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming on. And thank you, dear Krishna Prabhu and Nanda Rupa Mataji, for your comments and question at the end of this. And without devotees that are also expressing electronic thank yous. All glories to Guru and Gauranga. Jai. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sundibhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Have a nice, wonderful start of your week, your weekday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Go ahead, Srila Prabhupada.